Hello and welcome. Today we are looking at mains electricity, and in particular we are looking at plugs and cables. Now to begin with, I've got a picture of a kettle here. I've just noticed that I haven't got a handle on there, but never mind, I'll fix that for next time. But we've got a kettle here and it runs off mains electricity, and the way it does that is that it has a cable that is connected to it at some point, usually around the back here, and that is then connected to our mains electricity via a socket in the wall. Now we need to be aware of what's inside this cable and how this is connected to our plug. So the first thing is, if we look inside, we can see that inside the cable, we call this a 3-core cable. 3-core cable, and the reason why we call it that is because it has 3 further leads or 3 further wires inside. Each one of those is covered in its own plastic insulating cover, and the material inside is copper wire. And the reason why we use copper wire, you may remember from other videos, is that it's a very good, out of all the metals, it's one of the better ones for conducting electricity. But anyway, so this is a 3-core cable, has 3 further wires inside it, and these colors we'll talk about in a sec, but these are basically the wires inside there. Now sometimes we have what's called a 2-core cable, and that might be something on a device, something like a hairdryer. So here's our hairdryer. Again, I've magnified the cable there to see what's inside, and we can see this time we've only got the blue and the brown, but this is a 2-core cable for obvious reasons. Basically, we only have 2 wires inside. Okay, and the reasons for that we'll go into either later on in perhaps another video. But that's what you see inside these cables, and we need to see how we connect these actually to mains electricity. And this is done usually through a wall plug, and for the UK we have a 3-pin plug that looks a little something like this, and let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. So you're all familiar with a plug stuck into a wall socket with the little switch there. What you need to be aware of is what's inside and how the wires are connected, and some of the names of the different wires and so on. So the first thing is, if we take the back off this, okay, the first thing I would say is this is not something that you would do at home. This would be very dangerous if you had a plug that was exposed in this way. So this is not something for you to try, and obviously if you see one, you've got to tell somebody about it straight away. But anyway, if we were to look inside, we would see that we have 3 wires connected as such, and you need to be able to label the different parts on here. The first thing we want to mention though is how this plug is kept as safe as possible. And the first way is that we have over here a tough plastic or sometimes rubber case, and the reason for that is why the plastic or rubber is that plastic and rubber are very good insulators, so electricity can't actually conduct its way across there. And the reason why it's tough obviously is so that it doesn't break very easily if it gets knocked around a bit. Okay, the other thing down here we have is our cable, and this cable is made of plastic. Again, it's a kind of tough plastic, so while it's quite flexible, it doesn't break very easily. Here we have what's called a cable grip, and this is important because it holds our cable in place, and so that if this gets tugged a little bit, it won't actually pull these wires away from the pins. This in fact is sometimes called a cord grip, to grip the cord. There is one other safety device, and that's over here in this kind of brown color, and that's the fuse. And the fuse has the job of melting if the current gets too high. So if for some reason there is a surge in current, this is designed to melt, and basically all it is a wire. If we open that up, we can see inside, all it is a wire with inside there. It's a weak point in the circuit, and if the current goes too high, as we said, this will melt, or sometimes we say the fuse blows. Okay, now we have different types of different size fuses for different types of appliance. They often come in 3 amp, 5 amp, and maybe 13 amp, but if we have a 5 amp fuse, what we mean is this fuse is designed to carry current up to 5 amps. Anything above that and it's going to melt and cut off the electricity supply to that appliance. Okay, so that's the basic idea, the safety behind this plug. We need to know how this is wired up and why. So on the right hand side over here, this wire has a special name. is called the live wire, and it's on the right hand side and it's brown. Okay, and the way we remember this, you might have seen this in a book somewhere, but the brown one is on the right hand side. That's supposed to say right. Okay, so the brown wire is on the right and it's the live wire. The one on the other side is called the neutral wire, and that's blue. And again, we can use the second letter in and say the blue is on the left, and that leaves us with the last wire, this green and yellow wire, and that is called the earth wire. The earth wire. Okay, and what that does is a part of the safety aspect of this plug, which we're going to look at in another video. Okay, so these are the types of wire that we have and where they are located, and you are actually required to know how this is wired up. You're also required to know or probably identify if there's any problem. So if these two were the wrong way around, sometimes they show a picture with these the wrong way around, you might be asked to identify what the issues are with a wired plug. It's probably worth mentioning also that if we've got a neutral wire on this side, we also have this device here. That's the pin that goes through and into the wall socket. So that's the pin, and we call this one the neutral pin because it's with the neutral wire. This one, you would guess, is called the live pin, and this one is called the earth pin. Very straightforward. So those are the safety aspects for this mains plug, and also how the wires are connected, and you should be able to label this, make sure they are labeled correctly and know which wires are in the right place. The other thing, of course, is that these wires are insulated by these plastic covering materials because we don't want them touching each other. If they touched each other, that could be quite dangerous as well. We don't want too much of this copper wire exposed either, so again, to avoid them touching each other. But that's an overview of that aspect of it. If you were to look at a 2-core cable and see how that was connected up, we have the same, basically the same idea, same way. The only thing is we don't have the earth pin connected with it to an earth wire, and this is on certain devices like hair dryers and other materials that are well insulated. Okay, and again, we'll explain why that is in another video, but it's enough to say for now that this is how these wires are connected, and there is no earth wire on a 2-core cable. So that's a roundup of the safety aspects and wiring on a plug. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.